When the mosquito bites an healthy person, then sporozoites will get transferred into the healthy person. Because of vaccination and immunization, smallpox is completely eradicated from the planet, or otherwise once it was a quite very deadly disease. When the liver cell bursts, all the sporozoites will get released from the liver cells or the liver, and they will enter into the blood. If we get the disease also, the symptoms or severity of the disease will be lesser. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this session for class 12 biology. I am Dr. Divya, biology faculty. So in this session 2 of chapter 7, that is human health and diseases, we shall learn about the infection process or the life cycle of Plasmodium vivax, and also we will learn about what are the control measures that we can follow in order to prevent the spread of infectious diseases. So in the previous session, if you remember, we had learned about the different pathogens that causes different diseases in humans. So in this session, how to prevent them, we shall look into. So the life cycle of Plasmodium. So in the previous session of this chapter, if you remember, we had learned that Plasmodium vivax is a protozoan and it causes the disease malaria, wherein the female Anopheles mosquito acts as a vector that carries the disease from an infected person to a healthy person. So how exactly the disease spreads from an infected person to a healthy person, and what happens in the body of the infected person and that of the mosquito, we will look into. So the life cycle of Plasmodium usually has two hosts. It occurs in two hosts. One is the mosquito, which acts as a host, that is inside the body of the mosquito or the gut of the mosquito, and the other one inside the liver of the human body. So to begin with, so how the infection spreads? So a person suffering from malaria, if the mosquito bites that particular person, then the sporozoites will enter into the gut of the mosquito. So the mosquito then goes and bites the infected person. Now the mosquito, which is carrying the pathogen Plasmodium vivax, which causes malaria, that is the female Anopheles mosquito, when it goes and bites another human being, the sporozoites gets injected into the blood of that particular human being. Now the sporozoites will travel. The sporozoite is nothing but the parasite here, because it is the components of the Plasmodium vivax. So the sporozoite, it will reach the liver through the salivary glands and through the blood. So the sporozoites will be present in the salivary, they will be present in the gut of the mosquito. From the gut of the mosquito, they reach the salivary glands of the mosquito. So when the mosquito bites an healthy person, then the sporozoites will get transferred into the healthy person, and through the bloodstream it will reach the liver. So now where are the sporozoites? Inside the liver of the human being. Now, in the liver, what happens? The parasite, that is the sporozoites of the Plasmodium vivax, they will reproduce. They will undergo asexual reproduction inside the liver cells itself. Now, when lots of sporozoites are being produced, there is no enough space for the sporozoites, therefore resulting in burst of the liver cells. And when the liver cell bursts, all the sporozoites will get released from the liver cells or the liver, and they will enter into the blood. Now in the blood, they will reach the RBC. So they will contaminate the RBC. Now in the RBC, again they will undergo asexual reproduction in the red blood cells or in the erythrocytes or in the RBCs, and therefore they will cause bursting open of the red blood cells or the RBCs. Now when the bursting open of the RBCs happen, our body will have a lot of malarial symptoms such as fever. Along with that, body shivering, all that symptoms will start to develop. Now the parasites from the infected red blood cells. So when the infected red blood cells called burst open, the parasites will leave those burst open red blood cells, and it will start contaminating the new red blood cells. Now in the new red blood cells, the pathogen, that is the parasite, the sporozoite, will enter into the sexual mode of reproduction. So in sexual stages of reproduction, they will produce the gametocytes, that is the female gametocyte and the male gametocyte. Now in the RBC, what is there? The sporozoites which have been sexually reproduced to form the female and the male gametocyte. Now this female and the male gametocyte, when the mosquito bites the infected person, the female and the male gametophyte will enter into the body of the female Anopheles mosquito. Now what is present in the body of the female Anopheles mosquito? The male and the female gametocyte of the sporozoite of Plasmodium vivax. Now this is the mosquito's host. So inside the mosquito, what will happen to the sporozoites or the gametocytes or the Plasmodium vivax, we will look into. So inside the body of the mosquito, the gametocytes, that is the male and the female gametocytes of Plasmodium vivax is there. Now these will undergo fertilization, that is the male gametocyte and the female gametocyte of Plasmodium vivax, they will fuse together inside the gut, that is the intestine of the mosquito. So now in the gut of the mosquito, the male and the female gametocyte that is there, that will fuse or they will fertilize to form or to release the sporozoites. Now these mature sporozoites, they will reach the salivary from the gut, they will migrate to the salivary glands of the mosquito, and when these mosquito which carries the sporozoites in the salivary gland, they will bite the healthy person, the sporozoites will get introduced into the bloodstream of the healthy person. Again it will affect the liver, then from the liver it will affect the RBCs, from the RBCs again they will affect the new RBCs wherein they will produce the female and the male gametocyte, and again the cycle continues. So this is the life cycle of the Plasmodium. So always through the blood, the first organ that gets infected during malaria is the liver, and then the RBCs get infected. So this is how Plasmodium vivax gets transmitted from the mosquito into a healthy person, wherein they will undergo two life cycles, that is the asexual stage and sexual stage in the human host, and sexual and asexual stage again in the mosquito's gut. So therefore two hosts are involved here, one is the human and the other one is the mosquito. So here the female Anopheles mosquito acts as a vector. So moving further, let's learn like how can we prevent all these infectious diseases. So maintenance of personal hygiene is the one thing that we can do. So keeping a body clean, because wherever there is a wet surface, wherever there is dirt, it is a place for the bacteria and the fungi to thrive. So therefore maintaining personal hygiene is very, very important. Then consumption of clean drinking water, because a lot of waterborne diseases, for example Salmonella typhi and Ascariasis and all that can spread. And also consuming good food, clean food, vegetables, fruits, etc. Next is maintenance of public hygiene, because it's not just enough if we maintain the cleanliness of us, that's not just enough. Even a surrounding also needs to be clean. All the other people also should follow the cleanliness. So for that, proper disposal of waste and excreta should be done. You should not dump the waste and the excreta wherever possible. It should be properly disposed, and periodic cleaning and disinfection of the water reservoirs need to be done. So for cities and all that where huge water tanks will be kept there, every once in a while the cleaning with using water cleaning chemicals needs to be done in order to maintain the cleanliness of the tank and the water. And pools, cesspools and tanks should follow proper standard cleaning practices. So cesspools are nothing but we can call them as sump. So sumps to store water. So underground tanks where water can be stored. So all these should be regularly checked, and cesspools need to be regularly checked. Water storage tanks need to be regularly checked, and proper standard protocols need to be followed for timely cleaning of these water storing reservoirs. And these measures are particularly essential where infectious agents are transmitted through food and water, such as typhoid, amoebiasis and ascariasis, because all these are the ones which usually transmit from one person to another through food, water. So therefore proper cleanliness or standard protocols for consuming clean food and water needs to be practiced. And in the case of airborne diseases such as pneumonia, common cold and all that, these above measures should also be followed, that is cleanliness. Apart from that, we must always make sure that we do not share our belongings with the infected person, because cold, pneumonia and all that can spread from an infected person to a healthy person through aerosol sprays, droplets and all that. So therefore, not just uninfected person should follow this protocol, but also the infected person should make sure that whenever he or she is having a cold or a pneumonia, they have to wear mask, and when they are sneezing, make sure that they close their nose and then sneeze, and regular washing of the hands with good sanitizer and all that to avoid a healthy person from getting the infection. It can be avoided. So, and also for the healthy person should not use the belongings of an infected person so that the airborne diseases can be prevented. And for diseases such as malaria and filariasis, that is those diseases which are transmitted by vectors, like we have malaria, there is filariasis, which is also called as elephantiasis, that is caused by Vaucheria bancrofti. So these diseases are transmitted through insect vectors, and some of the important measures that we can take in order to control the spread of diseases is to eliminate the vectors itself, or eliminate the house flies, eliminate the mosquitoes and all that. So for that, what we can do a lot of things in maintaining the hygiene of a surrounding. So to avoid stagnation of water, wherever water is stagnant, like maybe you would have thrown a small lid of a bottle or a cap of a bottle outside and you might think what is a big deal, but no, that small cap where water is collected, it can become the breeding place for the mosquito. So all that, wherever there are chances of water being stagnant, it should be avoided. Nowadays people have the trend of keeping a plate under the planters, so that also is a problem, because earlier plant water would drain off from the pot and it would just flow. But now, to maintain cleanliness, what they do is they keep a plate under that. But that again, cleanliness is maintained because water will not flow everywhere. But on the other hand, the water will get collected in that particular plate and it can be a breeding place for the mosquito. So all that needs to be avoided. So anywhere water that tends to remain stagnant, that should be cleaned properly, or if that is not possible, chlorine or bleach and all that can be added to the water. And regular cleaning of household coolers. So coolers usually use water, right? To circulate cool air, they require water. So those coolers also, periodic removal or disposal of the water and adding fresh water needs to be done. Otherwise, it will become a breeding place for the mosquitoes. Then use of mosquito nets. So we can do all this, but whatever mosquitoes are present outside, we can't stop it from entering into our house. So that time what can be done is use of mosquito nets for windows, or while going to bed, mosquito nets can be used to prevent mosquitoes from biting. And also in ponds and all that, it is very difficult because we can't add chlorine to the water. The water plants can get killed and it can completely alter the pond ecosystem. So in such cases, what can be done is fishes like Gambusia, this is an important MCQ. Fishes like Gambusia can be introduced into the pond so that they feed on the mosquito larvae and the mosquitoes population can be brought to a curb. And next, spraying insecticides in ditches and drainage areas, swamps, etc. in order to prevent the mosquito growth. So all that can be followed. So some of the protocols that we followed, we can spread these diseases which are transmitted through vectors such as dengue, chikungunya, filariasis, malaria and all that can be prevented. Next, in addition, doors and windows should also be closed, that is covered using either mosquito nets or wire mesh so that the mosquitoes don't enter into the houses. And the use of vaccine and immunization programs have completely enabled or to eradicate deadly diseases like smallpox. The vaccine for smallpox was found out by Edward Jenner, right? Edward Jenner. So when one of the milkmaids actually came to him because she had contracted cowpox. So when he observed the milkmaid, he got to know that the milkmaid did not contract smallpox, but she was able to contract cowpox because smallpox was prevalent during that time. So when he studied, he got to know that it was because the milk that was there was acting like an antibody against that smallpox. And that is when it led him to discover a vaccine for smallpox. Nowadays, because of vaccination and immunization, smallpox is completely eradicated from the planet, or otherwise once it was a quite very deadly disease. Even plague has also been completely eradicated. Polio has been completely eradicated because of immunization, vaccinations and all that. And also a large number of other infectious diseases like polio, diphtheria, pneumonia and tetanus have been controlled to a large extent by the use of vaccines. So we have a lot of vaccines that are available, which is given for the baby right from the birth itself up to a certain age. And there are influenza vaccines also available, which can be taken by everyone. That is, once in a year it can be taken. Before the start of the influenza season it can be taken. So all that vaccines will actually help us to prevent from contracting infectious diseases, or if we get the disease also, the symptoms or severity of the disease will be lesser. And discovery of antibiotics and various other drugs have also enabled us to effectively treat infection. So because of antibodies itself, we are surviving now, right? Antibodies are needed to prevent a lot of infections in a body. Imagine a life without an antibody. There would be a lot of death, because we have n number of microbes there which are capable of causing diseases in us, which can be curbed or brought to a control, which are capable of causing bacterial diseases in us. So therefore, they can be curbed or brought to a control by effective use of antibiotics. Like we have penicillin, there is streptomycin. All these are given to prevent further damage that can happen because of bacterial infections and all that. So this is about some of the preventive measures that we can follow in order to prevent the spread of infectious diseases. So some of the diseases can't be prevented, but at least by following these protocols, we can curb the symptoms that we have to suffer because of that particular disease. So this was about the session wherein we learned about how Plasmodium vivax, how its life cycle happens within the human host and within the mosquito host, and also what are the preventive measures that we can follow in order to prevent and control the spread of infectious diseases. So in the coming session, we shall learn about immunity and antibody, because if we follow a healthy lifestyle, our immunity will also be good. And immunity is nothing but there are various antibodies in our body which render immunity to us. So what are those? Are they specific to a particular antigen or not? What is its structure? All that we will study in the coming session. So see you in the coming session with these two topics. Thank you.